Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel today. We are diving into one of the most alarming and unprecedented developments in the Middle East. The headline that has caught the attention of the entire world is that Israel and Saudi Arabia have traded deadly missiles for the first time in history. This is not just another border skirmish or a shadow proxy battle. This is a direct confrontation between two of the most powerful nations in the region. And the implications are immense. The Middle East has always been a hub of tension, conflict, and power struggles. But the idea of Israel and Saudi Arabia directly firing missiles at each other was something unimaginable. Until now, for decades, these two countries, though never close allies, shared common rivals and sometimes found themselves indirectly aligned in their regional interests, particularly in containing Iran. But recent events have turned that fragile understanding into open hostility. The exchange of missiles reportedly began. After escalating accusations from both sides, Saudi Arabia accused Israel of conducting covert operations and targeting sensitive installations near its territory. Israel, on the other hand, accused Riyadh of providing advanced weapons and intelligence support to groups that Tel Aviv considers hostile. What started as heated rhetoric quickly spiraled out of control, and for the first time in history, we saw Israeli missiles strike inside Saudi territory, and Saudi forces respond with a barrage of their own aimed at Israeli targets. The sheer scale of this event is shocking. Observers note that this confrontation could signal a complete reshaping of alliances in the Middle East. Israel has fought wars with its Arab neighbors in the past. But in recent years, it had seen normalization efforts with some Gulf states. Saudi Arabia was always seen as the potential crown jewel of those peace deals. But instead of friendship or diplomacy, what we now have is open conflict. This new war footing brings huge risks not only for the two nations involved, but for the global community as well. The Middle East is home to some of the world's most vital energy supplies, and any disruption here can send shockwaves across international markets. Already reports indicate that oil prices have spiked, and global investors are watching the situation closely. The exchange of missiles also raises questions about the future of regional stability if Israel and Saudi Arabia are now openly at war. What does that mean for the smaller Gulf states? What does it mean for Iran? What role will the United States and other global powers play in this conflict? These questions remain unanswered, but what is clear is that the balance of power in the region has shifted in a dramatic and dangerous way. For decades, Saudi Arabia positioned itself as the leader of the Arab and Muslim world, while Israel positioned itself as the dominant military power in the region. Now these two titans are locked. In direct confrontation, analysts warn that neither side can afford a prolonged war, but neither side can also afford to appear weak. The logic of deterrence and face-saving could push both into an extended conflict that devastates the region, reports from the ground indicate that the missile exchanges have already caused civilian casualties and damage to infrastructure in both countries. Israel confirmed that one of its military bases in the Negev desert was hit, while Saudi officials confirmed strikes near Riyadh that damaged several facilities. Both governments are trying to control the narrative, but the images and videos circulating online show just how dangerous this confrontation has become. The reaction from neighboring countries has been mixed. Some are calling for immediate de-escalation, while others quietly view the conflict as an opportunity to realign their own strategies. Iran, in particular, may see this as a golden chance to expand its influence with two of its main rivals now distracted by fighting each other. Turkey and Qatar are also carefully monitoring developments and could try to play a role in mediation or even in shaping the battlefield dynamics indirectly. From a global perspective, the United States finds itself in a very delicate position. Washington has long been an ally of both Israel and Saudi Arabia, but open conflict between them puts American policymakers in a nearly impossible spot. Supporting one could alienate the other, staying neutral could diminish American influence altogether. The Biden administration has called for restraint, but the lack of immediate leverage raises doubts about whether Washington can stop the spiral of violence. Europe is equally concerned with energy supplies, and migration pressures likely to worsen. If this war expands, Russia and China are also carefully calculating their responses. Moscow has maintained ties with both Riyadh and Tel Aviv, while Beijing has deep energy interests in Saudi Arabia. But also growing ties with Israel, the global chessboard is now in flux, and the moves of these powers will shape the outcome of the conflict. One of the most alarming aspects of this missile exchange is the potential for escalation to unconventional warfare. Both countries possess advanced military capabilities, including sophisticated missile defense systems, cyber warfare capacities, and rumored access to more devastating weapons. If this conflict continues, it could go beyond traditional missile exchanges into arenas that threaten not just regional but global security. Inside Israel, there are debates about whether the government has overplayed its hand. Some citizens question the wisdom of opening another front of conflict when tensions with Palestinians, Hezbollah, and Iran-backed groups are already high. The Israeli leadership, however, insists that it cannot tolerate what it views as Saudi provocations and support for hostile actors. In Saudi Arabia, the leadership faces its own challenges. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has staked much of his legitimacy on transforming the kingdom into a modern power, but a direct war with Israel could derail his ambitious economic projects, including Vision 2030, while at the same time, failure to respond to Israeli attacks would be seen as weakness, both domestically and across the Arab world. This places Riyadh in a bind where escalation may feel like the only option. The human cost of this confrontation cannot be ignored. Both Israelis and Saudis now live under the threat of missile fire. The fear of sirens, air defense interceptors, and sudden strikes is becoming a grim reality for ordinary people on both sides, while politicians and military commanders make their calculations. It is civilians who will bear the brunt of the suffering. International organizations such as the United Nations are calling for immediate ceasefire negotiations, but with distrust at an all-time high, neither side appears willing to back down. This is not just about military strikes. This is about prestige, national pride, and long-standing grievances that cannot be easily set aside with a few diplomatic meetings. The historical significance of this first-ever missile exchange between Israel and Saudi Arabia will be remembered for years, regardless of how long the confrontation lasts. This marks the end of an era where Riyadh and Tel Aviv could at least avoid direct conflict. Now that barrier has been broken, and it will be difficult to restore the old status quo. Looking forward, the possible outcomes vary dramatically. One scenario is that cooler heads eventually prevail, and a ceasefire is brokered perhaps through U.S. mediation or by other global powers. Another scenario is that the conflict spirals further, leading to a full-scale regional war drawing in Iran, Turkey, and other actors. The worst-case scenario would be an uncontrolled escalation that spreads chaos across the Middle East and even beyond. The economic consequences alone could be devastating. Oil markets are already reacting nervously. Global trade routes like the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz could become flashpoints if the war expands. Major corporations and investors may begin pulling back from the region, triggering economic shocks that ripple worldwide in an already fragile global economy. This could push markets into deeper instability. Socially and politically, the conflict is also reshaping narratives. For years, some leaders pushed for normalization between Israel and Gulf states. This conflict shatters that vision and revives older narratives of hostility, division, and mistrust among Arab and Muslim populations. There could be widespread protests across the region, reigniting sentiments that many governments had tried to calm. For Israel, this war adds yet another layer of complexity to its already precarious security environment, fighting on multiple front stretches. resources and raises the risk of mistakes for Saudi Arabia. The war brings the danger of prolonged instability that could weaken its regional leadership position and threaten its ambitious domestic transformation projects. The uncertainty of the moment makes it one of the most dangerous chapters in recent Middle Eastern history. Analysts are warning that we are at a crossroads where decisions made in the next few days and weeks could determine whether the region plunges into deeper chaos or manages to pull back from the brink as we continue to follow this story. The one constant is that the Middle East remains a region where conflict can erupt suddenly and reshape the entire global order. This missile exchange between Israel and Saudi Arabia is proof that old assumptions no longer hold true. What was once considered impossible has now become reality. Every new update from this confrontation is being scrutinized by governments, intelligence agencies, and ordinary people alike. Because the stakes are so high, the coming hours and days will reveal whether this remains a contained clash or the beginning of something far larger and far more devastating. The people of Israel and Saudi Arabia now find themselves unwilling participants in a danger.